Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Just Daf It, Daf Yomi Share, led by the one, the only, who?
Pennsylvania.
Benzi Lang, the one, the only. I'm leading today's share is Daf Nun Beis 52 in Yevamos. I have my brother-in-law and good friend over here, Yehuda Price, the brother of my wife, and he told me that I'm not allowed to joke around at the beginning of this year about what we were talking about. We were talking about something else. Was related to Birchas Hailanos. I'm not going to talk about what the joke was, whether you have to do it or not have to do it. It was about that idea. But I did convince him, the Gemara says in other places that you're supposed to joke around before a shir. Even the big Rabbanim used to have a joke before the shir, right? The Gemara says that they should open their hearts and that the shir should go into their hearts, right? It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, I think, right? Shabbos. You familiar with this Gemara, Yehuda? You never heard this Gemara?
Could be.
Anyway, so I will tell you a joke. Today I'm going to celebrate my 40th birthday. I'm going out to dinner tonight. I really turned 40. There's a video about me faking my 40th birthday when I was 39 and a half. It happened half a year ago. But tonight, I did turn 40. My Hebrew birthday's on Shabbos. My English birthday was on the 7th day of Pesach. And I'm going out for dinner. Yehuda's going to be there. My wife, some family, my mother-in-law, some family. So it's today I was buying a birthday cake for myself, and I asked the guy. I said, "How old do I look?" He says, "You look 30." I said, "Come on, you don't care about hurting my feelings? I'm 25 years old. You hurt my feelings. You should think about what you say before you say it. You hurt my feelings. I'm 25 years old. You say I look 30. You know how embarrassing it is to tell someone they're older than they really are." The guy was shocked. He didn't know what to do. And then he felt so bad, I spent 90 shekel, $30 on a birthday cake from this guy. It was a small little birthday cake. I don't know how good it is. Parv. And he says, I'm like, don't worry about it. It's okay. I'm really turning 40. So I got him. But then I was in the taxi on the way home. And I asked the taxi driver, I said, how old do I look? He was like, you look between 40 and 50. Now, honestly, do I look between 40 and 50? He says, between 40 and 50. I'm like, what, you think I'm 50 years old? So the guy's like, how old do I look? He looked like he was 67-year-old. I'm like, you must be 100 then, right? So I think he laughed. I don't know. But he was 71 and he claimed to have a great grandfather, 120. Yehuda, was he lying? He said he had a great grandfather who lived in Iraq who was 120 years old. Yehuda, is it possible to live that long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was 120.
What? His great grandfather, he said, was 120 years old.
Could be.
Could be. I mean,
I don't know his great grandfather.
This is the second, I believe, false story I heard from a taxi driver. The first false story I heard from a taxi driver was a couple years ago, where I got into the taxi and the taxi driver claimed that he was one of the three soldiers pictured in the famous picture after the Kosel was recaptured by the Jews in 1967. And there was a picture of three chayalim, three soldiers at the Western Wall, and I think they took off their paratrooper hats or something like that, and they were like looking at the Shemayim or something like that, and there was someone blowing a shofar. I don't know, there's a famous picture like that. He said he was one of those three soldiers. He said 24 soldiers ahead of him when they were going in hand-to-hand combat in the old city died. They were killed by gunfire. He got hit in the stomach by 2 bullets. He still has those 2 bullets lodged in his stomach. And he made it to the Kosel, and he was the one who liberated the Kosel, and therefore he was in that picture. I took a picture with that guy, and my father just showed me a picture of what those people look like today. It wasn't one of those people. You have to know, when you get into a taxi here in Israel, these taxi drivers, especially if they're American, right? If you're American, they think they can just take all your money, right? They think the Americans just give out money like it's like water, right?
No.
You don't?
I'm not a taxi driver.
Maybe you should be a taxi driver. Want to be a
No, I
taxi
don't
driver?
want to.
All right. Yehuda, thank you for joining me. If you want to go say Berachas Ilanos, there are some posts that say you're allowed to say Berachas Ilanos. I don't know if you have to say Berachas Ilanos. Am I allowed to say what I said to you before? Can I say it, Yehuda?
No, don't say it.
Oh, okay, all right. I won't say. I won't say when he's here. I'll say it later. No, I won't say it. I have to respect people's feelings and wishes, and Birkas Ilanos is very important and dear to many people. I don't want to ruin their party. So go out. If you haven't said Birkas Ilanos, Yehuda, what should they do now? How much time do they have left? Today's the last day to say Birkas Ilanos.
They can only say in Chodesh Nisan. After Chodesh
When's
Nisan, I don't
Nisan?
know.
When's Rosh Chodesh Iyar?
Rosh Chodesh is the Sunday. Once the Shabbos.
Once the Shabbos. You really only have till Shabbos to say.
After Chodesh Nisan, I don't know what's the din. If you're allowed to say or not, I don't know.
So Yehuda is advocating, go out and find that tree that they mark, the one tree in your whole neighborhood that has fruits growing from it, and go say Birkas Ilano, say it with kavana, loud, a big bracha, and make sure Yehuda could hear it. Even if you're in America, make sure your bracha is so loud that Yehuda could hear it, and say Amen, right, Yehuda?
Yeah.
Amen.
Right.
All right, bye. Thanks, Yehuda.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. It was nice to have you. All right. Let's get started with the daf. It's been a long time since I had someone to sit next to me for the intro part of my shir. It's always nice. All right. The Gemara says, what's the bottom of Nun Aleph and Beis, really? It's quoting from the Mishnah. Case that's a mimer. So the Gemara on top of Nun Beis and Aleph, let's start the daf, says, Hi Gerach or Getu. The Gemara brings a machlok, the Mishnah brought a machlok, Shagam Lil on the Rabbanon, whether there's Gerach or Ger or Maimer or Maimer. And then the Gemara, the Mishnah details, Ketzad, how does this play out? What's the exact case? It doesn't talk about Gerach, it talks about doing Maimer. So it's really, Ketzad is the wrong way of describing what the Mishnah is doing. Amar Rav Yehuda, Gerach or Ger, Maimer or Maimer, right? We don't have to talk about that. That's talking about. We already talked about it on the Rabbanan. Obviously, the case of Gamliel on the Rabbanan is talking about a case where there is two Yevamos, right? One Yavam, two Yevamos, or the opposite. But if it's one Yavam, one Yevama, right, you really can't have Gerach or Get. It wouldn't be enough. Everyone agrees there's no significance Gerach or Get or Maimer or Maimer. So what about a case of Yavam Echad Yavam Achas? How would you be matter that? So also that's why the Mishnah continues. Also, Maimer Vivim also on Get Shricha and Chalitza. You did Maimer and then you gave her a get. The get invalidates the Maimer, but you still need a Chalitza. Also Maimer. The Mishnah is also Maimer Bala Rezuk Mitzvah. So you do Maimer and you're Boel. You're together with the woman. Zu Hu Kim Mitzvah. So this is the mitzvah. Lema Messiah Leila Rav Huna. Say this is a proof of Rav Huna. The Rav Huna mitzvah. Yevama Mekadesh v'achikach Boel, the real mitzvah by Yevama. First you do Kiddush and then you do Bila, even though technically you're calling her with Bila. Ema Avzu, so it's only Shita Rav Huna. There's someone that argues on Rav Huna. Rav Huna is one opinion. But other opinions say that's not necessarily the best mitzvah. It's not the way of doing the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to do Bila, like the Torah says. So the Gemara says, Ema Avzu mitzvah, in order to fix according to the disputant, the one who argues on Rav Huna, we would say, even this is like a mitzvah. We're going to discuss more of this nature. We'll see in a second one more. We're going to talk about Yom Tzion. Whereas Pshita, it's obvious. Avzok mitzvah, of course, right? If you do Kiddush and you do Maimer and Bia, it doesn't hurt. So there's an opinion we said before that once you do Maimer, it removes the concept, the contract of Yibum over here. It turns into the regular case of Eris and Nisuin. And therefore, you'd have to do an Erisin and a Nisuin. You'd have to actually be Makadish. You have to be Makadish. You can't just go and do Nisuin. Nisuin doesn't work without a Kedushin. Emalav mitzvah ka'avid. You say maybe because in that Shita, if you don't do it with Kedushin, if you do it with Kedushin, you're not doing a mitzvah. K'mash malan, that even if you do it, we don't hold like that in Mand Omar. Even if you do Maimer and then Bia, that's still a mitzvah. So that is the way of doing Yibum. It's one of the ways of doing Yibum. Gufa, Amar Rav Huna, Mrs. Yom Mekadesh Rakak Bo. In Bo, Asa Maimer Kan. If he did Bo, if he did Bia, and then he was Mekadesh right afterwards, he gave her a diamond necklace after they were together in the morning. He's Kona her. So the says in Bo, Asa Maimer Pshita. The main thing is the Bia. One thing is the Bia. Of course, it's Kona. So the Gemara says, "Hadaha Kani Bia." It's Kona Bia. Le'ema Imbal below Maimer Kona. If he is Boel below Maimer, he's Kona. Tanya Loka Makos Mardus. We have a brisa which says that if you do it without kiddushin, without mimer, then you get makas martis. You even get lashes from the rabbanon. So Mar said the Rav Mangid Man the Makadish would be a Rav himself gave out lashes. Does that mean lashes with a whip or lashes from his tongue? He scolded them. Man the Makadish would be a, even though the Mishnah says in Kiddushin that you're allowed to Makadish Nisha Kesef Shtarabia, right? You give her money, Shtarabia. You could actually, really, this is halacha l'maisa, right? Instead of under the chuppah giving her a ring, you could just seclude yourself, have bia with her, and that's your kedushin. And then you come out and you have the sheva brachos. This is really what the Torah is talking about. The Torah Mishnah and kedushin says that explicitly. Rav had a problem with that. He says he would give malchus. Your makadosh would be uman the makadosh b'shuka. Also, if you're makadosh, even kesef or star, if you do it in a public place, that was also a bad thing. It's called a chazal or throwing the Rishonim throwing the word pritzusa. It's pritzus. Pritzus means to breach a fence, right? When you go through a fence, you walk through the doorway. You don't breach the fence. You don't knock down the fence. It's not proper etiquette, proper manners. We're going to talk more about that. We talked about manners yesterday. We're talking more about that today. What is pritzus over here, and what are these things that Rav is asking giving malchus for? Malchus with a whip or malchus with his tongue? Man the Makadish v'lo shiduchi. Hear this Chasidim. Look at this Gemara over here. You're Makadish without shiduchim. You don't go on dates. You just meet each other for half an hour. And you're Makadish her. That's not good enough. No, Rav wasn't happy about that. He said you got to go on dates. You got to go on 3 dates. After 3 dates, so then you're allowed to ask personal questions. After the 4th date, you're allowed to call the Rav, her Rav. After the 5th date, you have to get married in Eretz Yisrael. In America, you're not allowed to get married. You have to wait till at least the 7th date to propose. If things are not going so well, the 7th date, you can't propose. You can propose on the 9th date. If things are really not going well, then you have to go on 11 dates. The 11th date is the deal breaker. If you don't get it proposed on the 11th date, the boy doesn't propose, you have to kill, the shotgun has to kill that shidduch. Those are the laws of shidduchim. This is a joke. But you're supposed to do shidduchim. You're supposed to flirt with her. You're supposed to court her. You're supposed to romance her. We're going to talk about this even about Zion, one of my favorite topics. Uman de Mavatel Gita. He also is very upset with people on Mavatel a get. Now, the halacha is you give a get. You send a shliach to give a get to your wife. And then you go and you send another shliach. Tell that shliach I want a Mavatel the get. Now, halachically, that bittul, haget, works. But a lot of times, the shliach won't pay attention to this other shliach, and he'll give the get to the wife. Technically, it's not a gerushin. And she'll remarry, and she's an Asian sis. She's married. Her children will be Amzerim. He was very unhappy with that. Uman the Master Modah Gita, again, he's unwilling to give a get. A different kid, unwilling to give a get. Finally, he acquiesces. And then he, just to spite the people, he says, you know what, I really don't want to give this get. He tells people to aid him. He says, I really don't want to give this get. Now, halacha, that's not invalid. It is a good get. But people spread rumors. They'll say, oh, this guy gave a false get. He was get ma'usa. It was a get forced get. And then, which is a apostle get. And therefore, people will spread rumors that she's a mamzeres, that the children are mamzerim, and she's committing adultery. Umad the pakir shlicha the rabbanon. Someone comes, an agent from court comes to subpoena you to court, and you treat him rudely. Now he's upset about them. On the shah yisham the rabbanon le'at talis and yomin velocity the beinin of atava l'shamde. Again, when someone is excommunicated by the rabbanon for 30 days, he's excommunicated for 30 days, and then he waits. He doesn't try to get rid of his excommunication. He waits 30 days till it's up, and then it's up. He's supposed to be unhappy that you're in excommunication. But al hachasna the Rebbe Chamoy. This is related to me, a chassan, son-in-law, who lives in his mother-in-law's house, his father-in-law's house. It's a problem, right? The Gemara seems to imply the problem is that the mother-in-law has her eyes on the son-in-law. She's going to force him to be together with her. I live with my mother-in-law. I don't think this. I never felt like this. She was trying to court me. Anyway, I guess some people, some places, it is more prevalent. So the Gemara says the doyer and the chalif lo. The Gemara is medayik. The Gemara infers from the lashon of Rav. It's only if you live there, but you pass by. Meaning you come once in a while. It's not a problem. How the chalif ababa the beichamu even now the Rav Shesha is based on Rav's teaching. Even someone who came for dinner once in a while, he would give him malchus. The Gemara says who made them have a daim machmase. That was a special case because there was already suspicion that she was after the son-in-law. All these cases we don't know for sure, but if there's suspicion, meaning she's chasing after a son-in-law, like sending him texts in the middle of the night, so then we know that was a problem. Nardai Amri. Nardai is a different version of Rab. But Hulu Aman give Rab. Rab wouldn't give actual lashes. Maybe he'd be upset about these things. Except if you do two things wrong. The Makadesh would be right? Instead of giving her the ring under the chuppah, you took her to a surgery and ball her. For Kiddushin, and then you didn't do Shidduchim, meaning you're Hasidish, and you didn't go on dates. So you didn't go on dates. You did he'd give you malchus, he'd give you a tongue lashing, or maybe physical lashes for that. Biga the Amri afilu b'Shidduchin amishim b'Tzusa. Some say the second version of the Dai says, even if he did date her to go, and instead of giving her the ring, she really wants that ring, that gold ring, that white gold ring that doesn't have a diamond on it, and you went and bowl her, that is pritzusa, it is breaching fences, and it's a problem. You get a tongue lashing. Tarabanan. Kate said Maimer. How do you do Maimer? Nasan la kesef shava kesef. It's just like you do Kiddushin. You give her something worth money, or give her actual money, or something worth money. B'shtar, Kate said. How would you do it with a star? The Gemara one, B'shtar, Kate said, if we already explained Kiddushin is the same thing, a star also be like Shtar Kiddushin. Kasav la niyar la cheres. You write it on paper, or you write it on parchment. Cheres would be an earthenware kli. Meaning when you did ceramics, right? You wrote a name. You wrote the star on the ceramics. Of course, you go on the ceramics on your date. So you gave her the ceramics that you made for her with asking her to mekahare mekudeshali on the earthenware mug that you gave her, that you did. Even though it's not worth anything because you're a terrible artist and your ceramics are worth zero, it's still you write Harim Gudeshali, it's a good Kiddush. Rabbi Haki Gamar. Stark Suvas Givmin Ketsa. No, what we want to say is that there's a different Lashon. What's the Lashon you use when you write a star Yevama, right? A star to Mekadesh the Yevama. Because of La Ana Ploni, what do you write? Ana Ploni Bar Ploni, I the son of my father. Kabilas Yas Plonis Yevimti Alai, I'm accepting this woman. La Zuna, La Farnasa, to feed her, to give her clothing, Karoy, Vash take Suvasa, Nilsi Baili Arishona. In order that, but still, I'm only guaranteeing her ksuba from her deceased husband's property. If her husband was really poor, the Rabbanan de facto law is the Rabbanan man, the jor also. They made the rule is that she is makabel ksuba from the second husband. They the kalabain of Lautzia, right? You can't be married to a woman without ksuba, because then it lessens the woman in your eyes, because you can just get her very easily. You don't have to pay the ksuba, so. Gives her value to have the ksuva. Right? He goes to the Yevama, gives her a get. Now we're talking about a get. A get apostles her. We're going to see on Daf Amud Beis why it apostles her. He can't do Yibam anymore. Can't marry her anymore. He wrote on the get, you're Megresha from me, but you're mutter l'chol adam. Now, in Gerushin, if you're married to a woman and you write this in a get, that's a apostle get, because it has to be krisos. You have to cut her away from you and let her marry anybody else. You can't offer her to everybody else. So the Gemara says, "Get Yevama the Rabbanan who get them mahani beishes ish mahani b'Yevama, get the lo mahani beishes ish lo mahani b'Yevama." One side to say is just like it doesn't work by a married woman. It doesn't work by Yevama also. Dilma asi lachluvi begita. Maybe here it's different because maybe people will get confused, even though it's not a halachically valid get. It looks like a get, so people will think it's a get, and they'll be wondering why he's doing yibum after he did the get. Amalei chashin dilma asi lachluvi begita. The halach is we're concerned. It looks like a get. Let's give her a blank paper also. He should passel her, consider it a get, right? She should consider her gereshus, and he can't marry her. He can't do yibam. There, you give a woman a married man gives a woman a blank piece of paper. He doesn't pass her to the kuna, right? A grusha is passed to the kuna. You give her a piece of paper, doesn't pass it with nothing written on it. You don't pass it to the kuna. Here, this does possibly kuna if you say Harei Amigreshes Mimeni Mutaras Chol Adam, you're Amigreshes from me and Mutaras everyone. The sign of Isha Grusha Isha Lo Yikachu Afilu on his Garsha Alam Isha Lo Yikachu. The Gemara Darshan the Brisa says even if she's only Migreshes from one man, right, from her husband, you can't marry that woman even though she's not mutaras to everybody else. Behind the Reyach Haget Shaposa Bakuna. That's exactly what Chazal we're talking about. It has the scent, it has the smell of a get, even though it's not a halachically valid get, but it does pass the Kuna. It's considered she's Miguresh, she can't marry a Kohen anymore. Amar Rabbi Rachama, Hare Amru, Amar Echad Alavlar, Kosav Gal Arasasi. If someone said, Chazal have said that if you have an arusa, right, you're Makadesh a woman, and then you write a get larusasi, when he tells the scribe to write it, he says, write this get for my arusa, the shchasena agarshena, hareza get, and one of the stipulations in the get is when I take her, when I marry her, right away, when I marry her, she's automatically migureshes right away. That's effective, Nesh Yada Lagarsha, because once he does Erisin, he just already has the power to do Gerishin. She's Mukudeshes to him, so he's the power to do Gerishin. So therefore, he can make that as a stipulation in his get, in his Uliisha Ba'alma and get Nesh Yada Lagarsha. And then Beis Amad Beis here at the top says if it's not true, that if she's not your wife at all, meaning you write a get to a woman who's not even mureses to you, so that you don't have the power yet to be megarish her, she's not mikudeshes to you, so it's ineffective. What about if you write this for your Yevama? Is she like an arusa, or she's like no one at all, not married, not shaykh at all? Since she is tied up to him, you have to either do chalitz or yibam. It's like an arusa. Dilma came into by Maimer, lo, but he didn't do Maimer yet. He's not like arusa, and it will be ineffective. Teku, the Gemara doesn't know the answer to this question. Bayu Rav Kananya, kasav get lezikaso lo amaro lo zikaso maho. He says I'm writing a get for my zika. He has a zika, right, and he also does a Maimer. Then he writes a get lezikaso lo amaro or lo amaro lo zikaso. He writes the get out. He stipulates in the get is only to break away the Maimer, only to break away the zika. Now he has both things. Maho. Maimer ilu zika karami havaleka magarish chatzi isha. Do we say the Maimer sort of adds on to the zika? There was a zika, there was a connection, and he did Maimer, so therefore strengthened it. So therefore, it's a really strong bond that he's created, a strong kiddushin. And when he gives the get, havaleka magarish chatzi isha, it's like he's magarish half a wife, right? Hamagarish, like a really strong kiddushin. So in a strong kiddushin, a regular get wouldn't be sufficient. Hamagarish katzi isha lo also lo klum. You garish half of your wife, it's invalid. You have to garish the whole wife. Oh Dilma, you say Maimer and Zika are two separate things, right? Zika, as we explained, is something which is related to the nisuin, the yibum bond, and kiddushin would be part of the nisuin, aschal of the nisuin. So the Gemara said, so therefore it would be effective for whatever he wrote it for. The Gemara said, "V'tifshul emi the Rava." Say the answer from Rava. Dama Rava nasan gel amara hutra sarasa. Rava says, this is a complicated case that Rava is talking about. Rava is talking about a case, again, where you have three brothers married to three regular women, not sisters, three regular women. It talks about a case where one brother dies, so he leaves a wife. Reuven dies, and Shimon does Maimer. He has a wife also, and he does Maimer. And then Shimon dies also, and now the Maimer, the Reuven's wife and Shimon's wife fall to Levi. So now the wife of Reuven is like the wife of two husbands, right? He did Reuven was Reuven's wife, and Shimon did Maimer to her. So therefore, she can't be taken. She's widow of two men, she can't be taken in Yibam, and therefore the Sarah is also Potter. Rava says that if he did get Lamamaro, if he did Maimer and he gave a get for the Maimer specifically, Hudra Sarasa, it works not just the pot of the Maimer, but the pot of the Zika also, it Potter everything. So therefore, even Gemara is assuming the get would work, even if he did get Lamamaro, it would work for the Zika also. This maybe wasn't apparent in the Havamina. So you see, according to Rava, that would be the din. Mater is a Sarah, right? It's like it makes it that she's not Lord Shaykh to Levi. That Maimer, the wife of Reuven and Shimon, and the co-wife of Shimon, Levi can take in Yibam. So Rava was pasha to him that the get Lamara works to absolve the whole Yizika and the whole Yibam. construct of Yibum. Hananya wasn't sure. According to him, we're unsure. Chalad Vasa Maimer. The Mishnah says he does chalitza and then he does Maimer afterwards. Whereas chalitza klum, once you do chalitza, it removes the construct of Yibum, and the Maimer, the Kiddushin afterward, is completely ineffective. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Zudi Rabbi Akiva. It must be this Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Akiva. The Amar in Kiddushin Tovs and Chayve Lavin. Because what happens when you do the chalitza, right? Your kai but lo yivna. Asher lo yivna is beis echav, which is really an essay. There's an opinion according to Rabbi Akiva, even b'chayve essay is no tefisas Kiddushin. Avacham omrim yesh achar chalitza klum. Chum say from a kaddish a woman after you do chalitza to her, it would work, right? If you do chalitza to a woman, so there's an isser essay, but Kiddushin is tofsin b'chayve lavin or chayve essay. Only chayve kari is not tofis. Can you say our Mishnah follows Rabbi Akiva? Vakasani reish nasan get v'asam maimer. Tzricha get v'chalitza. The beginning of the Mishnah says you gave a get and you did maimer. You need a get and chalitza. Rabbi Akiva came on the Yevamos get. Once you gave her a get already, mahani ba maimer, does Kiddushin work? How could that work? By Tanya, why can't that be? Rabbi Akiva Omer, listen, get liyavimto shenesra level olamis. When you give a get to your Yevama, right? We always talking about this. You give a get to her, so you apostle. You can't do yibum anymore. Why not? So Rabbi Akiva explains. She's also olamis to you. She can't do yibum anymore. Shenemra lo yuchal ba'ala rishon sher shilcha achar shiluach asher shilcha achar shiluach. So he learns it from the pasuk. This pasuk is talking about when you divorce a woman and she marries another man, you can't remarry her. But Rabbi Akiva is also talking about the simple explanation of the pasuk is that you can't remarry her even if she didn't marry somebody else. What case is that talking about? The halacha is only if she remarries another man. So he said it's also talking about a case where she's your Yevama and he does a gerushin to her. Right, she was the wife of your deceased brother. No one else married her, and you did a gerushin to her, so she'd come to us according to Rabbi Akiva. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it comes a lav in the Torah. So and Rabbi Akiva holds in Kiddushin Tovs and Chayve Lavin. So how does it work? Something where I answer, Ravashi get Yevamim derabanan v'kras smachta ba'alma. This whole concept of get that you can't marry her is only derabanan. It's only a smachta. It's not really dindo rice. Rabbi Akiva. Our Mishnah only goes according to Rabbi Akiva. He makes a chalutz like an erva. There's no tefillas Kiddushin by chayve esrei, chayve lavin. Avacham omrim yesh chalitza klum. Come and say there is the after chalitza. You do chalitza and you do maimer afterwards. It works. It's Kiddushin. Ani omer I must say. And I say when is bizman shekid shel shemisha? So Rabbi qualifies the Rabban. He says only if when he has maimer he does Kiddushin. I'm doing it for another marriage, a new marriage. Al kid shel Yevamos, but you're doing it to revive the old status of Yibum. Einach chalitza klum. That doesn't work. Tani idach. Again, this case, do chalitza, and then you're makadish. Rabbi Omer him kitchel l'shem isha. So if he had in mind, he's makadish. I'm doing this for a new kiddushin to marry her. Srichem I don't get l'shum yivmos and srichem I don't get. Then it doesn't work. Cham Omer ben shekitchel l'shem isha ben shekitchel l'shem yivmos srichem I don't get. The Chum say it works either case. I'm Rabbi Yosef. My time with the Rebbe. What's the reasoning of Rebbe? Asuka ode ben nechse ager chasav shalohin the lokani. Someone who tries to acquire the property of a ger. A convert dies. He has no relatives. He had no children when he was Jewish. So you want to acquire his property. So if you hoe or you do work in his field, that's a kinyan. They can be owned as someone's property through a kinyan, this type of kinyan. You do a sheet in the ground, you can be kona it. So you work the land a little bit to be kona it. So if he thinks this land belongs to him, it's really a ger's property, he's not kona it. So therefore, it's the same thing over here. So, because here, he thinks he's doing it l'shem yivmos. The only way you can really mekanish her is to marry her again, because the yivm is gone, the contract yivm is gone. Amalei Abaye, mi dami. Abaye says it's comparable. Hasam lo kamekhavin l'mikne. There, he's not quite. If he thinks his own property, he's just working his own field. Has no kavanah to be kona at all. Kamekhavin l'mikne. Here, even if he's doing l'shem yivmos, he has kavanah to be kona. He has the wrong intention. He can only do it l'shem kiddushin, l'shem nisuin chadasha. A new, I like my Hebrew word, a new nisuin, but not to revive the old status of Yevama. The kani, it must be similar though. If you want to compare it to someone plowing or someone working nichse ager, property of a convert, it must be talking about a case where it's one ger's property, and you thought it's some other ger's property. We had kavanah to be kona, but you the wrong person. And the halacha is there that you're kona, and Rabbi says you're not kona. So how do we resolve to explain Rabbi and Rabbi's shita? It's talking about a case where he says it's kashli b'maimer yivmin. He says after you did chalitza, he says I'm kavish to you with the maimer of yivmin. Rabbi says maimer ilo yizika karami. What happens when you do maimer after after what there's a zika is that it adds on to it. But asik chalitza afkasa lazika. This is exactly the opposite story we said before. It makes the mimer dependent on the zika, and the chalitza then goes and uproots it. They say it's viewed separately. The zika and the mimer are viewed separately. Mikara ilo amar la iskashim and mimer yivim milo mahani. If originally before he did the chalitza, he tried to mekadesh with mimer, it would work. Hashanan mahani. So therefore now also, even though he did chalitza, it should work also. Logically, it should work also. It's a little hard to understand that logic. We're talking more about this, explaining Rabbi Shita tomorrow. Stick around for Iyun Ben Sion. We'll talk about Makadesh Bibia or Makadesh below Shidduchim, Hasidish style. Rob wasn't happy about this. Why not? And what's the explanation? See you there. Bye.